James. How are you?
Good, Rich. How are you?
I'm good. James, how would you
Hey, Rich,
describe...
hold for just a second. Technical issue.
Okay.
You're good, man.
You want me to sit over there? Awesome. Is that better? Rich,
Okay.
how come
how-
Rich's face is not popping up either on the screen like it normally does? Okay. One moment, Rich. I want to see your. There you are. Look at that handsome sucker. Look at that handsome sucker. Hey, there's some people in here making some comments. Said, "Am I sure about that, Rich?"
I would check your eyesight.
Me and your wife disagree.
Thank you. James, how would you describe the impact on your program of Bo leaving and Drew returning for 2025?
Yeah, obviously those are two massive questions that I could talk about for the entire press conference, and you hit on both of them in one question. That's a vet move, Rich. Let me first talk about Bo. Bo Prabula has been a phenomenal teammate. Has been a big reason why we are where we are right now. Parents, awesome. High school coach, awesome. Being a backup quarterback's not an easy thing to do and he never approached it that way. Had so much confidence on our team based on how he went about his business and prepared like a starter again, which is something we talk about all the time, but is easier said than done. He also, in my opinion, he's a man's man. Like, came into my office, had multiple conversations with me about this process. We talked last week, had no intentions of leaving. But we got problems in college football. And I can give you my word, Bo Prabula did not want to leave our program. And he did not want to leave our program until the end of the season. But the way the portal is and the timing of it and the way our team is playing, and when you play the position of quarterback and there's only one spot and those spots are filling up, he felt like he was put in a no-win situation, and I agree with him. And number one, I hate for it. Number one, most importantly, for Bo Prabula. I don't think it's in the best interest of the student athlete. I don't think it's in the best interest of college football. But I think that's our challenge right now, right? Who is really running college football and making the best decisions for the student athletes and for our sport as a whole? Bo should not be put in this position. Whether we don't play as many games during the season, whether we don't play conference championship games, which could actually equal things out to some of the teams that aren't playing them anyway, finish the season so it aligns more with the academic calendar for most institutions, because that's part of this pressure as well. To have a transfer portal / free agency going on right in the middle of the playoffs there's just a lot of things that don't really make sense. And I know there's been a lot of discussions about, maybe a commissioner of college football, but I think it's pretty obvious we need that. We need somebody running college football, and we need somebody that is not biased based on a conference, and that is out of the financial impacts of it as well. Because if you're just making the decisions which are in the best interest of the student athletes in college football, then I think you can do it. But if you're biased by a specific conference, or if you're impacted by making all your decisions based on revenue and earnings, then we're never going to get to a good place. So, I'm concerned for college football right now in general, to be honest with you. And I think a lot of people are. And, I really wanted this answer to be about Bo Pribula, who is a wonderful young man, and I would recruit him every year. Knowing everything I know right now, I'd go back and recruit the heck out of Bo. Bo grew up wanting to come to Penn State his whole life. This is his dream school, and had a phenomenal career here. And I just want everybody to understand that, most importantly, and why if we created a system where this guy couldn't finish this season with his team. And there's going to be people say, well, he could have, but I'm trying in any situation that I'm in, personally and professionally, I always try to take a deep breath and look at things from both perspectives. And in my mind, as the head coach of Penn State, obviously I have a responsibility for Penn State and our football program, but I also feel like I also have a responsibility to Bo Pribula. So I hate it. I do. I hate it for him, and I hate it for Penn State. But I also don't think it's the right thing for college football. So long answer. I apologize. Obviously, Drew announcing he's coming back is an awesome thing, and we couldn't be more excited about that. And then, as you can imagine, that also factored in to the decision, right? So again, Rich, you asked a great question, but it's hard because I'd love to give both topics and both people the respect and appreciation they deserve. But literally, this could have been the entire press conference talking about these two topics. So now that just created a situation where now I'm going to get 13 more questions about it. But it's a hard thing to really put the totality of these things into words in this moment. And yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Let's go to Johnny McGonigal, followed by Mike Gross.
James, unsurprisingly, a follow-up on Drew specifically and his decision to come back. What were those conversations like with him, and what areas do you feel like he needs to improve, or you want to see him improve in terms of why he decided that he's not going to be going to the NFL after the season?
Yeah, again, as you guys know, and I'm struggling with this a little bit because I want to be SMU, 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 and I don't really want to talk about all these other things. And that's the challenge, again, of the timing of all these things. Again, Drew has been phenomenal. Mom and Dad have been phenomenal. We've had a ton of conversations. And obviously he's doing a ton of really good things, and he's developing, and he's getting better, and he's playing great, and he's leading. And I think there's a lot of excitement because I think they believe and we believe there's still a lot of room for growth and development. And we want to be a part of that. And I think they trust us in that. And obviously, there's been a ton of conversations with NFL GMs and scouts to be able to provide NFL reports and information to our players of where they're at and what their strengths are and what their weaknesses are, and how do we take that information, make a decision, and then spend, once the season is over, time attacking those things that people consider weaknesses. But like I'm conflicted with this because I answered the first question, but my job is to keep everybody focused on SMU. And with all this information coming out, that's challenging. I promise you this: when we meet, what is it, Wednesday? When I meet with you guys after practice, I'm not talking about anything else, and I'm probably not going to be great the rest of this press conference if it's not questions about SMU. But I also understand you guys got a job to do, and I'm trying to be respectful of that. But I also have a job to do as well, which is keep our team focused on the task at hand.
Let's go to Mike Gross.
Good afternoon, James. How are you?
Hey, Mike.
Having looked at the film of the Oregon game,
You're one of those guys, huh?
I guess.
You know what I'm talking about?
No.
So I worked with a guy from Jersey for a long time, and he used to always say what you just said, or gone. Or gone.
Man, I really had no idea where you were
Andy
going.
Kotelnicki did that as well, or gone. So it's just interesting, different parts of the country and different places. You're looking like I'm not sure if you know you said it that way, but you did.
Yeah, I'm not aware of having said it that way.
You
Yeah.
did.
That's weird. Okay. All right. You ran the ball in terms of planned running plays where you hand the ball to running backs. That was, I thought, by far your most effective running the ball all season. Looking at the film, what went so well, especially because you had a couple offensive linemen who were a little beat up. What went so right against Oregon?
Well, I think that's for a longer discussion, Mike. I'd ask you to write this down and follow up off season, because the answer that I'd like to give you is not appropriate in this setting, because I think it could impact how people game plan against us and what they do and what they're thinking. But at the end of the day, the answer for this time is, first of all, I think Katron and Nick are both back healthier than they've been in a while. And I thought our offensive line and tight ends did a really good job of getting a hat on a hat and straining. I also think, some of the quarterback run stuff we're doing to keep people honest, I think that was a factor in the game. And obviously Tyler Warren's role in that as well. But I think at the end of the day, we did a really good job of getting a hat on a hat and straining and getting our running backs to the second level on a more consistent basis. And, that's what you work all week on is trying to make sure that your guys understand their configurations and their movements, and how the pitchers are going to change, and how do you get a hat on a consistent basis. And if you do that, you got a chance. And that's in the run game as well as in protection. And I thought we did a good job. But I do think this is for a lengthier, longer conversation, Mike, that we can follow up with in the offseason.
We'll go to questions in the room over here. Mark?
Hey,
Free
Mark.
time. At the risk of bringing up somebody else who announced they're coming back, Andy Kotelnicki kind of mentioned that on social media. What does that mean for the continuity of the offense heading into SMU and moving forward?
Yeah, as you guys have heard me say, right, consistency on our staff is really important, but hard to do in the current college football landscape. And it's also a compliment and a curse, right? We keep losing staff to go be head coaches, or they leave here and then, go one other stop and then become a head coach. Like Dow just, became the head coach at App State, and really happy for him and his family. So, obviously being able to retain staff, and specifically in coordinator positions, is really important. And I think about how hard we worked this offseason to make sure that having 3 new coordinators wasn't going to create more challenges and be a setback for us. And I think we've done a good job of that. But I think there's also an excitement about what we can do moving forward, thinking about what we had to do this offseason. And now we have a foundation to build on. And I think there's a lot of excitement about that. I also think, Andy, like Brent Pry and some others, realize that, we're in a great position. We're in a top, 10, make the argument, top 5 program in college football with what we've been able to do here. Really not, really over my 11 years, but more recently. And there's power that comes with that. And at the end of the day, are you happy? And, are you doing it at a good place with good people, and can you win? And I think Andy and his family feel like, we're in a really good position, and he can wait and take the right job, and there's power in that. So, between myself and Pat Kraft and the administration, we want to do everything we possibly can to keep the staff in place and continue to build and grow. So, that decision was big for a lot of reasons, right? It's big because you don't want to be dealing with this, during the playoff run. You don't want to be dealing with this when you got players deciding what their futures are. And obviously these men and women impact that too. So for a lot of reasons, it's been good. And, and there was a ton of conversations that went on with that too.
James, how you doing?
Hey, Bob.
Wanted to ask you a question about this week, SMU preparation.
Thank you.
And as it relates to your offensive line, the right side of your offensive line, you have 2 players kind of at different points in their career. I think Sal Wormley is going to make his 40th start, I think, against SMU. Your thoughts on him, and also Rucci, what he's been able to do after Donko had the long-term injury, what those guys have kind of meant to the offensive line this year, especially lately.
Yeah, I put like Sal in the category with like Terry Smith, Chuck Losey, and Kevin Threlkill. I think Sal came with me from Vanderbilt, like been with me the whole time. And what I love about Sal is been there, done that, always got a smile on his face. He's had a really nice career. I think I'll have an opportunity to play at the next level. And I think that's been a big part of when Donka was there as a first year starter. And the same with Rucci, being able to possibly put Tyler Warren on one side of the tackle and the guard like Sal Wormley on the other side of a new tackle. I think that's helpful. The communication, the combination blocks, all those types of things. And Donka was doing some great things, started last year in the bowl game and kind of grew from there. Rucci showed up here after really not playing a whole lot for 3 years, if I'm correct in the numbers there, and really has thrived. I think he's really happy. He's got really strong relationships in our locker room. Our staff loves him. He's gotten bigger and stronger dramatically since he arrived on campus. And his confidence just continues to grow. And is playing great. His mom and dad have been awesome. They come to practice. I get messages and information from them as well. So he's thriving right now. And I think he's got a really, really bright future. And we are blessed to have him. He's been not only great on the field, he's been great off the field. He's also doing really well academically. And maybe the most amazing thing, he got a beautiful, intelligent girlfriend. I don't know how he pulled that off. Like, he's got the whole package here at Penn State. He's doing great in every area. And I'm just so glad he's home and back in Pennsylvania. All these high-profile guys that have decided to stay home or come back home are thriving. So it's been pretty cool to see. And obviously he would have played a ton this year anyway. But with Donka's injury, he's we couldn't be more thankful and appreciative that he's here, and I think it's a win-win for everybody.
Hey, James.
Hey, John.
Considering, just combine a couple of things here, considering that Bo did have a role on this team, how does that impact game planning for Saturday against SMU now that he won't be here?
Yeah, so obviously, that was something that people had to plan for, that we could use, that we could be creative in. And we're going to continue to do that with different pieces of the puzzle. So I think it's been too important to what we've been doing. We don't want to go away from that. And whether it's guys that have been playing already and put a little bit more on their plate with those specific roles, or whether it's guys that haven't played to this point, like in games and things like that. One of the things we're talking about is, our Sunday developmental squad scrimmages have been critical, and specifically for times and moments like this. We've gone live in those, not a lot, but we have, for all positions, including the quarterbacks. So there's been a ton of reps, that guys have been able to get. So that's been important from a development standpoint as well as from an evaluation standpoint. And we think we have answers that we got a ton of confidence in, but it's going to take a little bit more time and a little bit more creativity to get where we want to be. But we feel like the pieces are there. We gotta use some different pieces than we've been using up to this point.
In the middle, Audrey.
Hey, James. Good
Hey,
afternoon. Sticking with the quarterbacks, who at this point do you think is your backup? Is it Ethan or Jackson? And how have both of those guys kind of progressed this year? Obviously, Jackson's situation was a little bit different.
Yeah. So both of them will be part of the equation and part of the discussion. The difference is Jackson's been out all year and really has only been cleared for about the last week. So obviously those things impact it, right? You're talking about a guy that's, I don't know what the numbers are. We were actually running the numbers before I left and haven't gotten them yet. But if I had to guess, I bet you Grunk's probably got about 350 reps, in practice. And Jackson, who we love and think has a very, very bright future, wasn't able to get those reps. So all those things will be factored in before we make those decisions.
You got time for one more in the front, Neil?
Hey, James.
Hey, Neil.
Can you clarify with Bo, is he allowed to stay? Was that a mutual decision between you guys? I mean, obviously the stakes are high here, and to keep him around and, to use him, especially if necessary?
Yeah, so a couple things, right? We have a standard operating procedure, SOP, that the way we operate is if you go into the transfer portal, you're at that point you've made a decision to move on, that we're moving on. They're moving on and we're moving on. But as you also know, we're not going to have a standard rule for how we operate dictate everything. There's got to be flexibility within everything to put the program in the best position to be successful. We talk through a ton of different scenarios, and I think the more we talked about it and the more we went through it, a couple things. I think number one, I think Bo felt like he was going to have a hard time finishing school, finding a place that he wanted to go to, and still preparing like the starter, like he'd been doing all year long. And then the other thing was he was getting pressure to go on visits and go see these places. So I think it's one of these things, like a lot of things, in theory, that sounds good, but when you actually talk through how it's actually going to work, it's hard to do that. It's hard to say you're preparing to be the starter. And when I say the starter, you guys understand just our approach at every position, starters and backups approaching it that way. And I feel like at the end of the day, I don't feel like Bo felt like he could do those things to the level he needed to. He was out at practice yesterday, and I could tell he was distracted by all of this. So, yeah, do we have a rule and a policy? Yes. With every rule and policy, are there times where you have to revisit the policy and you have to at times make exceptions or be flexible to different solutions? We were open to different solutions and coming up with some scenarios that could work for everybody, and we just couldn't get to a point where everybody felt like it was going to work out in everybody's best interest. So, yes. Do we have an overall policy? Yes. Do we have flexibility and the ability to make some changes? I talked to some other players on the team and got their feedback as well, because I think you also realize, too, you make a decision for one, and it doesn't just stay to that one. There's a trickle-down effect to everything you do. You're setting precedent one way or another. So all those things factored in. But again, that goes back to my point that I made in the very beginning. That's why I got so much respect for Bo Pribula, not just how he handled himself for the last 4 years during the recruiting process and since he's been on campus, but he came into my office and we had multiple man-to-man conversations trying to find a solution that was in Penn State's best interest and Bo's best interest. And I think outside of both of our control, things outside of our control from a calendar standpoint, from an NCAA perspective, made that almost impossible to do.
Thank you very much, Coach. We'll have Coach Kotelnicki next.
I would really appreciate if your questions for Coach Kotelnicki were about SMU, because I'm going to tell